The day was a hum, a blur of keystrokes and deadlines. But night? Night was Hendrix's escape. He would sink into the soft glow of his laptop, the world outside fading away. Social media was his haven, a place of connection without the demands of real life. Scrolling through endless feeds, Hendrix found solace in the familiar. Then, Jenisha's face flickered onto his screen. Her profile picture stopped him. It was her smile, open, genuine, filled with a joy that resonated deep within him. Intrigued, he clicked. Her page was a tapestry of color and light. Travel photos, witty captions, and glimpses into a life that felt both familiar and exhilarating. Hendrix found himself drawn in, captivated by this stranger who felt strangely familiar. He hovered over the Add Friend button for a moment, hesitant. What was he doing? This was silly. Yet something compelled him. He clicked, a small action with unforeseen consequences. A notification blinked. Jenisha had accepted his request. A surge of excitement, unexpected and thrilling, shot through him. He crafted a message, casual yet intrigued. He hit send, holding his breath as if he'd confessed a secret. Their initial exchanges were tentative, exploring common interests, sharing snippets of their days. But as days melted into weeks, a rhythm formed. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, each message a thread weaving them closer. Hendrix found himself looking forward to their late-night chats. Jenisha possessed a warmth, a genuine curiosity that chipped away at his walls. He found himself confiding in her, sharing dreams he'd kept buried. He learned about her love for photography, her passion for rescuing stray animals. Her words painted vivid pictures in his mind. He felt seen, understood in a way he hadn't before. A connection was blooming, delicate yet undeniable. The air crackled with anticipation. They had been talking for months, their virtual world a shared sanctuary. But the distance grew heavy. It was time. They agreed to meet. Hendrix chose a bustling cafe in the heart of the city. He arrived early, nerves buzzing like a disturbed beehive. When Jenisha walked in, a radiant smile lighting up her face, his breath hitched. She was even more captivating in person. The hours flew by. They strolled through the city, laughter echoing through the streets. He discovered her laugh was like wind chimes, her touch a spark of warmth. They shared stories, dreams, and fears, their connection deepening with every passing moment. It felt natural, comfortable, as if they'd known each other a lifetime. As the day drifted into twilight, Hendrix knew. He was falling for her. Hard. This woman who had entered his life through a screen had somehow managed to touch his soul. The initial euphoria of their meeting lingered. Yet, slowly, subtly, something shifted. Jenisha's messages became less frequent. Her replies shorter, losing their previous warmth. The easy banter they shared was replaced with strained silences. Hendrix felt a knot of anxiety tightening in his chest. He tried to cling to the memory of their time together, to decipher the change in her. He sent messages. Each one met with silence or a non-committal response. The digital haven they'd built began to feel more like a cage. Every unanswered message, every unanswered call chipped away at his confidence, his sense of self. He held on, desperately trying to rekindle the flame that once burned so brightly. But some fires, once dimmed, refused to be rekindled. Hendrix was left with the ashes of their digital dreams, the ghost of her laughter echoing in the hollow spaces of their online world. Section 5. Shattered glass, shattered heart, the accident. The world dissolved into a cacophony of screeching tires and shattering glass. 1 minute Hendrix was driving, lost in thought. The next, he was pinned. Metal screamed against metal. The world outside his car a blur of red and blue lights. Pain lanced through him, a searing fire in his limbs. He drifted in and out of consciousness, the smell of gasoline and blood heavy in the air. When he finally came to, the sterile white of the hospital room swam into focus. He was trapped, his body a symphony of pain. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the gaping hole that had ripped open inside him. Jenisha. He needed to talk to her, to hear her voice, to know she was okay. He reached for his phone, his fingers clumsy and slow. He stared at the screen, his heart sinking like a stone. No messages, no missed calls, nothing. The silence was deafening, a confirmation of his fears. Jenisha was gone, and he was utterly alone. Section 6. The Void of Absence. Recovering in silence. Days bled into weeks. The sterile smell of the hospital became his world. The constant ache in his body a constant reminder of the crash. But it was the emptiness beside him that truly haunted him. No flowers, no cards, no Jenisha. He lay there, his body slowly healing, while his heart remained shattered. His phone, once a lifeline to her, now mocked him with its silence. He yearned to reach out, to understand, to hear her voice. But something held him back. Pride, perhaps, or maybe the crushing realization that he meant so little to her. He was a footnote in her story, a chapter she had closed without a second thought. The silence was her answer. Each day the nurses bustled around him, their cheerful chatter grating on his nerves. They didn't understand, couldn't understand the depth of his despair. He was alone in his pain, adrift in a sea of silence. Section 7. The Glare of a New Dawn. Jenisha's digital afterlife. He was finally discharged. The weight of the world felt heavier than before. Returning home, he was greeted by the same empty silence that had haunted him in the hospital. It clung to him, suffocating him. He opened his laptop, drawn to the familiar comfort of the digital world. And there she was, Jenisha. Her face beamed at him from the screen. Her smile, the one that had captivated him, now felt like a betrayal. Her profile was a kaleidoscope of new experiences, new friends, a new life. Pictures of her laughing, carefree, with someone else. The caption spoke of joy, of a love that he had so desperately craved. His heart clenched. She hadn't just moved on, she had soared, leaving him behind, a broken man grappling with the wreckage of his heart. The digital haven they once shared now felt like a cruel reminder of all he had lost. Section 8. Adrift in Memories. The Lingering Ghost of Love. He threw himself into work, seeking refuge in deadlines and spreadsheets. Anything to silence the roar of his thoughts, the ache in his chest. But even in the sterile environment of his office, her memory lingered. The scent of her perfume in a crowded elevator, a song on the radio that they both loved, the ghost of her laughter echoing in the quiet moments before sleep. She haunted him, a constant reminder of what he could never have. He found himself drawn back to their old messages, rereading their conversations. Each word a painful reminder of the connection they once shared. He clung to those digital fragments, desperately trying to piece together where it all went wrong. But the more he searched, the more lost he became. The past was a puzzle he couldn't solve. The future a blurry landscape shrouded in uncertainty. He was adrift, caught in the undertow of a love that had vanished as quickly as it had arrived. Section 9. A Heart Undone, Picking Up the Pieces. Time, they said, healed all wounds. But for Hendrix, time seemed to stand still. The pain remained, a dull ache that refused to fade. He was a mosaic of broken promises and shattered dreams, struggling to find his footing in a world that no longer made sense. He was surrounded by people, yet the loneliness was suffocating. His friends, well-meaning but clueless, offered platitudes that rang hollow in his ears. How could they understand the depth of his despair when they had never experienced the unique agony of loving and losing someone who was never truly theirs? Hendrix was left with the remnants of a love story that never had the chance to fully unfold. He carried the weight of their unspoken words, their unfulfilled promises. He was a man undone, forever marked by the ghost of a love that had promised him the world, only to vanish like smoke in the wind, leaving him with nothing but ashes and the bitter taste of regret.